And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single-family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited. And as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And I thank you for tuning in today. I'm glad you can join me. I've got a fun show for you today. It's actually inspired by a recent trip to the zoo that I took with my son. And hopefully this show gets you thinking. And if it does, and you think of some questions, send those my way. You can send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. Again, askandy@luinc.com. I answer those personally. I'm happy to take those up with you. And maybe that informs my next show. I love those questions you send me that help me put together the next show. But this show, inspired by the zoo, the Dallas Zoo. And we're going to talk about two things, the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. Ooh, what is that? Have you ever heard of those? And do these things have anything to do with your financial freedom? Do these things have anything to do with getting you to retirement? Well, my thesis today is that they in fact do. Now, this might be actually a show for the engineers out there, the computer programmers, the mathematicians, the biologists. You probably know all about the golden ratio, all about the Fibonacci sequence. I know you do. For everyone else, don't worry. I'll introduce you to these ideas. These are broadly spoken mathematical concepts, and I hope to show you why your current path to retirement is not effective. And we'll talk about what is. Now, before we get to those, Fibonacci and golden ratio, let's go to another simpler math idea, math concept that we've all heard about. A little geometry. Think back to geometry. Just talking about a simple straight line, a segment. You've always heard it. The shortest distance between two points is a straight line. Right? I've always heard it. I've repeated that to my son multiple times already. And I can see that in the physical world. But is a straight line the shortest distance between where you are now and your retirement? Why wouldn't it be? You know, you've been following the same straight line path all your life. It's the one that society lays out before you from a very early age. It's that same straight line that your parents and that your peers encourage you to follow. Get from point A, where you are now as a kid, to point B, where you're retired. Get in line to go to school. Get in line and get those good grades so that you can stay on that path, stay in line, and go to college and get those good grades so that you can get back in line, stay on that line, get that job, and then work for decades. Save for decades. Hope to achieve retirement. And so you do that. You follow that career line, that career path, climbing in a linear progression, right? A line, it's linear. Up that corporate ladder, rung to the next rung, to the next rung after that, to the next rung after that. It's never really ending. But hey, 3% raise 2 years ago, followed by a 3% raise last year, followed by a 3% raise this year. What do you think is going to happen next year? Yeah, 3% raise. Why is that? I looked this up. Indeed.com, you can check this out. They say that most companies have budgeted for 3% annual pay raises over the past decade. And most information, they say, suggests that this trend will continue. 3%. Is it true for salaried workers? Is it true for hourly workers? They say it's even true for people in the executive worker categories. Clearly a linear progression. 3%, 3%, 3%, 3%. Why would the company do anything else if they don't have to? It's just this march on. It's a slog. Forward, 1 foot after the other, 1 foot after the other. And you have to take a step back and ask if this linear projection is going to get you to that retirement that we talk about on this program. Shortest distance is a straight line, but is it really the most effective? I'll tell you one thing, and we're going to get to a little more around Mother Nature here in just a moment, but what does Mother Nature say about Straight lines. Yeah, this ties into that trip to the zoo. I will tell you that straight lines are not common. They are not common in the natural world. And in fact, if I harken back to my early days as a skydiver, yeah, I like to jump out of airplanes. It's fun. It's a blast. We learned early on to look for straight lines. We've gone up to 14,000 feet. We've gotten out of the airplane. We've fallen for a minute or so, done our things with our fellow jumpers. And we opened that parachute at about 4,000, maybe 3,000 feet. And sometimes we're not near the landing place, the drop zone, where we should be. Pilot error, jumper error, didn't look out the airplane, whatever happened. And so you got to figure out where to land away from the drop zone. And this is where we learn straight lines are usually bad news. Straight line, it's something man-made. It's a man-made construct. Power lines. Yeah, straight line, power lines. Ooh, that's not good. Don't land there. I was reminded of something that, boy, I learned a long, long time ago, early in my college career, because I was on that same straight line path like everybody else around us, and I was going to be a computer programmer. And I learned, fortunately, in about a year and a half's time of going down that path, that I just didn't like sitting forever behind a computer, hacking away. I liked the problem solving, but the commitment to screen time was not friendly to me. But during that study period, I learned about the Fibonacci sequence. It's very fascinating. A lot of computer programmers learn this. It's helps in the programming sometimes. So we're going to get to that and get off of that straight line path, just like I tried to do back then. It took me a while, but I eventually found a solution. And, if you think about it, Mother Nature does not like straight lines. We talked about that. And in reality, even though we think we're following a straight line path, our paths are not really very linear, are they? We meander, we stray, we set goals, but we don't really take the shortest route to get to those goals. We get off course. And unfortunately, usually when we get off course, it's not in a good way. But it's not just what we choose to do. There are exogenous effects out there as well, outside impacts that influence things around us. Wars halfway across the globe heat up. Stock markets crash. They do this routinely. I know it hasn't happened in a while, but it's probably going to happen again. And 401ks are cut in half. IRAs drop. The bottom falls out of those. And then you ask yourself, where did that linear progression to retirement just disappear to? What happened? So that line that we think we're on through life towards retirement, it's not a straight line at all. Just take a step back and look at it. And unfortunately, that line has a lot of dips in it and a lot of setbacks that keep you from getting to where you want to go. So if it's not a straight line, if that's not the answer to get you to retirement, then what is the answer? A spiral, actually. A spiral, interesting. And I was reminded of this, like I said, recently during a trip to the Dallas Zoo. We have a family membership there. We go all the time. I homeschool my 6-year-old. So, if we get the schoolwork done on any given day, that might be the reward. Hey, let's go on down to the zoo. He loves it there. Sometimes when the weather's cool, that alone is incentive, because we know the animals, they're going to be up and about and moving around and goofing around. It's just fun to watch. But more recently, there was what's called homeschool day at the Dallas Zoo, and a lot of homeschool families were there, people we know from other co-ops and stuff. And it was interesting because they did this in prior years as well, they set up stations around the park that you can kind of visit and learn new things and do little hands-on activities. And the theme this year was math. It was around mathematics. And one of the stations that we stopped at, this was my favorite by far. There are lots of things to do, less hands-on, but this one was all about the golden ratio that I mentioned and the Fibonacci sequence. Something I'd long forgotten about. So why was this on hand as one of the zoo exhibits? Well, like I said, Mother Nature may not like straight lines, but she really loves the spiral. And at this exhibit, they had a lot of items, and you can look online and look up the golden ratio. You'll see some great images, but they had a lot of items and pictures on hand at this exhibit that demonstrate this phenomenon. If you go out to the country, pick up East Texas, those piney woods, get one of those big pine cones, flip it over. What do you see? You see a spiral. Go buy a fresh pineapple at the store, flip it over. What do you see? It's a spiral. In season, go out and go to those sunflower seeds. You like to take pictures there with your kids and your grandkids. Look very closely at at the seed field on that flower, it's a spiral. And they had at this exhibit, they had a cross section of a big oceanic type snail, big snail shell, cut in half. They had a cross section. It's a spiral. Hurricanes, a spiral. Certain galaxies, right? Spirals. Nature likes the spiral. And if you look at the spiral, it really becomes fascinating because they have what is called the golden ratio, which describes certain aspects of, if you were to build a box around parts of that spiral, you're going to find this ratio. It occurs naturally. And it's 1.618. Yeah, they figured it out. It's also, the Greek for that is phi, or phi is the way you pronounce it, and the Greek letter. So this golden ratio, 1.618, we're going to get into that because that's a number you really need to know. Is your progression towards retirement linear? It probably is. Should it be? No. And that golden ratio is very fascinating as well because we see that same thing occur in that Fibonacci sequence that I mentioned, and I'll explain to you what that is. As you get into larger numbers within that sequence, you find that self-same ratio. I'll tell you what is the Fibonacci sequence? Well, my engineers, like I said, my mathematicians, my computer programmers, my biologists out there, you're going to geek out with me here a little bit. This is a cool sequence, like I said, that a lot of programmers use. And what it is, it's a series of numbers in which each number is the sum of the two that precede it. It starts at 0 and 1. Okay, the first numbers in the sequence look like this: 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. The simple math is 0 plus 1 equals 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 2 plus 3 equals 5. 3 plus 5 equals 8. Carry it on forever. And the growth becomes not only exponential, but it becomes more than exponential. And the interesting thing is, as you get into larger numbers within that sequence and divide one number by the preceding number, you get that golden ratio, which describes the patterns that we see within those pine cones, those shells, those galaxies. For example, higher numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. 144 plus 233 gives you 377. Divide 377 by 233, 1.618. It's there. You're going to find that over and over again. Mother Nature likes spirals. She likes the Fibonacci sequence. We see it everywhere. It's natural. So what about real estate investing? What about your retirement? What do we see there? Well, for most of us, it's that linear progression. Trying to go from point A to point B. Saving. Putting money in a bank account. Putting money in a 401k. Putting money in an IRA. With real estate, what do we see? Is it a linear progression? Or is it something more in line with that very fascinating Fibonacci sequence, something that is closer to exponential? Yeah, you know it. If you're doing it right, exponential. I'll tell you what that means when we come back.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
What does Del Walmsley, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, think you need to succeed in this market?
It's time to buy, and so you better get prepared, you better get educated, you better get your money right. You need to get involved because you're going to need the financing. You're going to need the vendors that we have available to us. You're just going to need the interaction with people. You need to immerse yourself into real estate.
Start your real estate immersion with a free workshop live online at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Creating the lifestyle you've always wanted. You're hearing Lifestyles Unlimited's Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb. If you have any questions, you can email me. Send those to askandy@luinc.com. Again, askandy@luinc.com. I hope you're still sticking with me. I know I got a little heady there just a moment ago talking about the Fibonacci sequence. I was talking with my producer over the break, in fact, about fractals. This is another kind of variation therein. And it's an attractive thing for us as humans to look at visually. And I want you to consider this going into your next phase of preparation for retirement, because a lot of what you've been doing has been linear. Easy. Linear is easy. It seems easy, but it's not. Although we say, hey, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. When it comes to getting from where you are now to your retirement, that will not do it. because it's not a straight line. You're going to deviate. And I want you to go in take that deviation in a better, more deliberate direction. So what do we see in real estate investing? Not a linear progression if you're doing it right. Sure, some people buy one house 2 years ago, one house last year, one house this year, one house the following year. That may be a linear plan for them. Now, I will say they're going to enjoy some benefits that make this less than or greater than linear, greater in a beneficial direction. But what I see is that real estate investing, if you're doing it right, it is more in line with that Fibonacci sequence that we just described. It becomes more exponential if you're doing it right. And yes, we teach you at Lifestyles Unlimited how to do this business right, how to invest the correct way in single-family rental houses, how to invest the correct way in apartments. And if you're doing it right, your growth can be closer to exponential. That's how we get you with real estate investing. We get you off of that linear path. I'm looking, by the way, at my computer at a picture of green Romanesco cauliflower. This really exhibits those fractal patterns. It's just pulling me in. I'm going to try to stay with you. It's just kind of magical. So how does investing in real estate get you off that linear path? Let me give you a few examples so you can better understand this. One of those we talk about on the show all the time. It's the cash flow snowball. I'm going to bring this back to earth now. So the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, they're a complicated way to think of this, I suppose. But the good news for you, and for me when I started 11 years ago, is that real estate is not that complicated. It is not complicated at all. And the cash flow snowball is an easier way to really think about this. And what happens? You go out, and I'm going to focus on houses here. This is how I got started. You're going to go out and you're just going to buy one single rental house, and you're going to create additional cash flow from that rental property. And depending on where you're buying, your net profit every month to your pocket, this is what you're keeping. It may be $200 to $600. I have seen investments lately cross my desk from the various Lifestyles Unlimited Realty team in that range, all across that range. So you buy one house, you create additional cash flow. And what does this do? Well, you're earning that income from your job. That 3% raise comes in great, a little bit more. Not keeping up with inflation, is it? But hey, you've added this house. You've added this cash flow. You're able to buy another house very soon, sooner because of that extra cash flow. So you buy another house, and that cash flow gets added to the pile. It snowballs. And you buy another, and you buy another, and you buy 2 more, and 5 more, and 8 more, and 13. Yeah, you get into that Fibonacci sequence. You really do. You can, because of the cash flow snowball. Now, has my personal rental house buying progress precisely followed the described Fibonacci sequence? No, but it was very, very close. Very, very close. More so than to that straight line linear progression. Just thinking in terms of absolute purchase of a house. You know, we bought 2 the first year, 1 the second year, 5 the third. Right? Got from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. to 8. That's that sequence. Just in terms of the numbers of houses bought, but the progression of our passive income and the progression, I went back and checked my net worth going back to when I started tracking it at the start of this whole project 10 plus years ago. It's more exponential, the way that grows. And this is something you can do too. Absolutely. Again, you don't have any rental houses now. You start at 0 and then you buy 1. And then you buy another one. 1 plus 1, that's 2. And then you buy another one. You're at 3. The cash flow's coming in faster. You really see how this works. You get better at it. So you don't buy 1 more. You buy 2 more. Now you're at 5. Then you buy 3 more. You're at 8. It really can go this route. This progression that I'm describing to you right now is fully possible. Go to last week's show. I interviewed Michaela. She bought 5 houses last year. Fully possible. She's only 6 years into her career at that time, 5 years into her career as a real estate investor. Buying single-family houses, this is fully possible, and do not get me started on apartments. If you become an apartment investor and you ride that investment to disposition, or meaning the sale, or either you do a cash-out refinance and you take those proceeds from that investment and you reinvest in more apartments, same thing happens. You take one investment, it becomes 2, it becomes 3, it becomes 5, it becomes 8, it becomes 13, it becomes 21, 34. We've had guests on the show that have 50 apartment investments. We have had guests on the show that have more. So yeah, you can do that there as well. Getting back to the golden ratio, I think this is fascinating as well because this appears in nature, 1.618. And as you get higher on that Fibonacci sequence, you take one number and divide it by the preceding number, you will find that ratio. So Mother Nature, this suggests a 60% return, really a 61.8% to be precise. But Mother Nature likes a 60% return. And I know, in your linear progression, I know you're nowhere near that in your savings account. You might be at 4%, you might even be at 5% these days. And I know you're not getting anywhere near that with that 3% annual raise at work. That's the average we've seen over the past decade, and that is the expectation going forward, 3%. And I'm pretty sure you're not getting that in your 401k. You might have some boom years, maybe 20%, and you're going to have some bust years where it's negative. What is it on average? Pretty linear. So 60% return. Are we hitting that with our real estate investments? Oh yeah, very, very often. In fact, and I've talked about this on a lot of shows lately, just on our single family houses. And just one of the ways that we make money, the equity capture, we're seeing 100% returns. And what that means is let's say I find a distressed house, a house that needs work, and I'm able to get it at a discount, and I buy it for $110,000. And maybe it needs a lot of work, let's say $80,000 in work, $50,000, somewhere around there. And at the end of the day, the house value's at maybe $220,000, $230,000, $240,000, right? You can see the spread in there already if you add the purchase price plus the cost of work relative to that after repair value, that value after we fixed it up. There's a gain there. But we finance these. We're buying with hard money. That helps us get through the repairs. That helps us cover some of the repairs through that hard money loan. And then we refinance into 30-year long-term debt on the back end. And as a result of that, although my purchase price was $110,000, my rehab was $80,000, my cash out of pocket may only be around $25,000. But as a result of this process, on top of that $25,000, I'm capturing $40,000 in equity. And I just took those numbers from an email that I got literally this morning from one of the Lifestyles Realty team. I think this was down in Houston. This was a house that was being presented. Off-market property, buy for $110,000. They didn't have the rehab number in there. I'm just making a guess. Valued at $220,000 when the work was done. Cash out of pocket only $25,000 to capture, to create $40,000 in equity. That's 175% return. So Mother Nature does it well. She does it very well at 61.8%, but boy, we're beating that. And not only do we have the equity capture, I just pulled up this deal, this investment. Cash flow is $209 per month. That's a 10.1% cash on cash return. Now, you're not typically going to see a 60% cash on cash return these days. But your equity gain can absolutely get there. And how does that feed back into that Fibonacci sequence? Well, from time to time, you're going to sell one of these houses to get to that equity and that appreciation that's occurred and that equity buildup through the mortgage pay down. And you're going to reinvest not in one, but in 2 or 3 or even 4 properties. And thus, the process continues. Now, here's another example. Different market. This is in South Carolina. And if you don't know, Lifestyles Unlimited, although it began in Houston over 30 years ago, grew to Dallas, where I sit, grew to Central Texas. It's now grown well beyond its borders. We have a brick and mortar office in Phoenix, Arizona. We have realty team there. We have realty team in Kansas, in Missouri, in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. So I'm seeing investment opportunities in my market, near my market, and all the way across the country. And here's one hit my desk recently as well. This is in South Carolina. I did my graduate, I followed that linear progression. I went to grad school. I could tell that my undergrad wasn't quite going to do it for me, so I got more student loan debt, went to grad school in Columbia, South Carolina. Yeah, I was a Gamecock. Well, this one comes from South Carolina, and purchase price $90,000. Market value when it's fixed up 172. You can already see a very big spread there. Equity capture on this one, similar to the last one in Houston, $42,000. Ooh. Estimated out of pocket, buying with hard money, $6,000. Whoa. That's a 700% return. Getting that in your bank account? No. Getting that in your raises at work? No. Getting that in your 401k? Not going to happen. 700% return. Cash on cash return, 38%, 39%. We're getting closer to that 60% on our cash on cash, but I'm more fascinated by the low out of pocket and that high equity capture. That speaks to Exponential. If I can repeat that, if I can repeat the other investment, and just looking through my inbox here, I'm not even going to open these individual mails. I'll tell you what I'm seeing because they put the highlights. I see here $20,000 out of pocket, $28,000 equity capture, greater than 100% return, 24 out of pocket, $45K equity capture, almost doubling. Here's one, $39,000 out of pocket, 24K equity capture. I did the math on this one already. That's 60%. We're on parity there with Mother Nature. 23 out of pocket for 32. 32 for 20, close to 100% or greater. And again, that equity capture, big numbers right now, that does not even factor in all the other ways that we're making money. That cash flow is very important, but we have the equity capture, the appreciation, and of course the tax advantages. And this is houses. We also do apartments and talk about Exponential. 1 house, 2 houses, 3 houses, 5, 8, 13. When you start to do this in apartments, you get into very, very big numbers very, very quickly. So a fun show for me to put together. I enjoyed hearkening back to way, way back when I was thinking I wanted to be a computer programmer. It's been a while since I thought about the Fibonacci sequence, but I was refreshed, like I said, at the Dallas Zoo with my son. And what I want you to do is, at the end of the day, at the end of the show, ask yourself, what is the path that you're on right now towards retirement? What does that look like? Is it linear or is it exponential? Does it approximate linear or does it approximate exponential, that Fibonacci sequence? Take a look at that. If it's linear, if it involves a savings account or exclusively a 401k, which is a glorified savings account, or an IRA, which is a glorified savings account, if it involves those annual 3% raises, all of those things are linear. Then I encourage you, take action and find that exponential space. And I didn't think in these terms when I started investing a decade plus ago, but when I look back at my numbers and how things have grown, I can see it. But you have to take action, and you can accelerate your path to retirement. Go to lifestylesunlimited.com and click on that free workshop button. Register, do that from the comfort of your home, and learn what we do at Lifestyles Unlimited. We can get you the education. We have the mentors to help you as well to make sure that you do enjoy that exponential growth. So, shortest distance between 2 points is not always a line. In this case, I think it's exponential. So, hey, get out there, learn what we do at lifestylesunlimited.com. I thank you for listening. And remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.